Here she goes with her music again. Okay, we are back for a third time for the Havamal round table. We got Jade and little Chaos Squirrel Halloween down here again, providing their insights and first time through reading. Again, I think we forgot to mention it last time. Y'all did not catch this. Bad Drake Keepers, because you're supposed to keep me in line. We forgot to mention we were using Jackson Crawford's translation of the Havamal.
It looks like this.
Yeah. Which there will be a link to it below. It is a really good translation. It's my favorite one I've read and used, so it's the one I always recommend anymore. And we will be picking up with stanza 41 tonight. And hopefully these two will be a bit more chatty on some of the verses. Because, well, it's good to have new insights as opposed to some old buddy-duddy like me's insights. And I just, what did I just, okay. All right. So, Jade, we will actually start Halloween if you'll kill the music. We will have you start with the stanza 41.
Lovely. All right.
It's because you just watched me pop a Tootsie Roll in my mouth is why. Sorry.
Actually, I didn't see you eat it, but it worked out well.
All righty. Friends should provide their friends with weapons and clothing. This kind of generosity shows generous mutual giving is the key to lifelong friendship.
Sharing is caring.
Well, that's part of it, but it's a little deeper than that. Thoughts, Jade?
I mean,
think about it in the concept of those times. It is still applicable modern.
I mean, people who you take in as like your true friends, you would in theory trust them with your life, which is why you would be providing them with not only clothing but weapon too, because you trust them. You have full, unbiased trust to them.
That is true. It is true. That's actually a side of that I hadn't considered. To me, what I've seen here is practical, usable gifts that not only that will sustain them.
Mm-hmm.
Something that is actually of use. It's, some people even refer to it as wise gifts.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something we don't see in gift giving as often anymore. We give frivolous gifts, pointless gifts. We don't think to give something practical and usable for self-sufficiency. Though your aspect, Jade, I would say is true, because if your friends are armed and self-sufficient, they can help you as well as you can help them. So there is that. And there is the sharing is caring concept.
Well, also, like with what Jade said, you're arming them, they can help arm you later, but like, do you want them to go to war for you with no weapons of their own?
Exactly. I mean, if somebody's got your back, you want to make sure you have theirs, and well, they're capable of having your back.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a factoid that is there. Very good. I'll take the next one. So 42 is be a friend to your friend and repay each gift with a gift. Repay laughter with laughter. Repay treachery with treachery.
Does treachery here mean like pranks? Like if they prank you, you prank them, or like actual treachery?
No, treachery is true betrayal. You'll actually notice these are separated. So it says be a friend to your friend. So this is broke apart really well when you look at the poetic styling of it. So the be a friend to your friend is one section. we're treating that is treated there. And it's to a friend, you should be a friend. If someone's being a friend to you, you shouldn't not uphold your end. It should not be a one-way friendship in modern terms. And repay a gift with a gift. So you should, again, we're still talking about that, it even friendship is on equal footing, not just relationships. Friendship itself is on equal footing. If you're the only one giving anything in the friendship, you should ask yourself if that's a friendship. We've had them. There are people we have spent months or even years trying to help. What have they done for us? Do they make time for you when you constantly make time for them? There's questions like that. And then there's the repay laughter with laughter. Again, we're talking about that genuine friendship, being there for one another, camaraderie together, making time for a friend. That is a huge thing, actually making time for a true friend. Because you got to understand, back then you couldn't just go see anyone at random, and we sure didn't have internet. And then there's that final part: repay treachery with treachery. Full stop. Because if someone's going to betray you, they've already betrayed your friendship. So you should easily toss that friendship out. So it's one of those things, which this was a hard one for me because I do not let a lot of people close. And in the past, when I have let them close, I let them take too much advantage of me. And it's hard for me to sever ties when that happens, or was, not anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, in modern
that one
times,
hits very close to home.
Yeah.
It does. In fact, I can think of a recent struggle with this, but and in a lot of ways, you guys, this is actually going to be interesting. How I look forward to your thoughts on this, because I think we've watered down the word friendship.
Yeah.
Because look at how many people brag about how many Facebook friends they have. None of those people's ever going to show up to have your back, care with you when you're sick, or even show up to your funeral. Social media, those kinds of things. We've watered down what we refer to a friend. Those would originally been called acquaintances. Because they're people they're people you see, they're people you chat with, but they're not people you trust. You know what I mean? And those are acquaintances. You would expect some form of treachery from them because you just know who they are, but they're not a friend. A true friend, you don't expect to betray you in any way. Now, you could extend that to, we could add a line, repay a prank with a prank. You could. Nothing wrong with that. That, though, I think is covered with the laughter, personally speaking.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when it comes to the watering down of the word friendship, what are your all's thoughts on that?
Yeah, I fully believe that. I mean, there's at least a good handful of people that are like connected to me on social media and stuff that we see each other's posts, say hi to those people once in a blue moon, but I don't really consider them friends. I know them. I know about them. I know a little bit about their lives, but I don't know them well enough to be a true friend. But according to social media, we're friends.
Right. And I think mentally and emotionally, that's something people really need to take to heart, is taking back real solidified ownership of the word friend. Because we meet people online, we chat with them online, and there's a lot of people that get in a lot of trouble because they trust them.
At me.
That was not at you, unless you're at yourself.
Because, obviously I do TikTok, And on TikTok, if you just happen to follow each other, like they follow you, you follow them back, or vice versa, you're considered friends even if you've literally never met this person before.
Yeah.
And like seeing someone on TikTok versus like knowing who they are as a person are very different things. Especially like I don't put my real name on the internet. Like obviously my real name is not Halloween. My parents didn't actually hate me that much. But I go by Halloween everywhere
Mm-hmm.
to keep like that separation and that safety from
Yeah.
like strangers you meet online. So it's like if you only know me as Halloween, you're probably not that good of a friend, which is one of the ways where I can like differentiate a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And that's not a bad thing. So be careful out there, people. Be careful who you trust. All right, Halloween. That means you get the next one.
All right. Be a friend to your friend and also to his friend, but never be a friend to the enemy of your friend. Which I think, so being an enemy to a friend of your friend's enemy means you could betray them, or you can go behind their back and risk hurting them. At that point, you can't be a trusted friend if you're going behind their back to be like with their enemy, with their ex, with whoever they don't like in their life. So you're not being a true friend if you're doing that.
I think that's spot on, Halloween.
It is, because if there is a bad linkage within the circle of friendship, you now have a way to harm the individual. Because if the enemy is a true friend with that person, then that friend will not betray that person, which means they don't have your friends or your best interest at heart.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that everyone in that situation isn't on the same page, that leaves the other two open for gossip, harm, treachery, all those horrible things. And you can, at no point could you ever speak with them in confidence because there's no way you can be sure it won't get back. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, excuse me, fanning myself with a different book. It is quite warm in here.
Oh, is that what's coming through?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was humid today. We went for a walk and it felt great. And we got about halfway through and the humidity just decided to remind me it was not as nice as it originally felt. All right. That brings us to 44, Jade.
Yep. If you have a good friend and really trust them and want good to come of your friendship, you should speak your mind with him, exchange gifts, visit him often. That I mean that just you make time for your friends. I mean even in this day and age, even with distance, technology at least allows people to connect and spend time and reach out to people.
Mm-hmm.
But like a true friend, you make time for them. You talk to them. You share your stories, even if it's, maybe not your best moment, but you still share those things with your friends. You have those heart to heart, and gift could be more than just physical things.
Oh, yeah.
That's something that a lot of people, misinterpret when they see the word gift. It doesn't have to be a physical gift.
No, it could be so much as, 3 in the fucking morning or YouTube, and you're just, they need to talk. Whether it's something silly, they just need to decompress, whether something major is happening in their life, and they really need to confide it, all these different things. You willing to say, screw it, I'm going to get up and take this call, that is a gift of friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You're not mandated to do it, but at the same time, a good friend does those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And you're right, you do make time to check on each other to make sure you're okay, and not just to shoot like one little quick message, hey, how you doing? You actually make time to sit down and chat, perhaps share a drink, much like a lot of us do. I think usually, not always, but most of the time within 2 weeks, each of us has sat down and probably had a 30-minute to an hour chat to catch up.
Yeah, thereabouts.
So,
and it's funny you said the calling at 3 a.m. Like, you guys were both busy. I can't remember with what. So I actually have another friend named Jade who I called at 3 in the morning after issues with the last guy I was talking to. And I was like, Jade, I just called crying. And she was like, bro, what did you do? What is going on?
well, in my defense, we have a system and you did not use it.
No, but you've also been super crazy stressed and busy, so like waking you up at 3 in the morning when you already weren't sleeping was not the best.
My phone would have rang, I'd have been there. So that's the system. I ignore text messages after 1-ish, sometimes
Also,
earlier.
It's not from the channel, but look at my mug.
That is a cute mug. I like that.
That is adorable.
So, and only a few people will buzz through my phone, and you're one of them. So there you go. All right.
Thanks.
That was 44. And again, I mean, Odin here is, showing us, make time for your friends. Don't ignore them. This modern concept of the friend we don't talk to for 20 years and then we pick up, that is a very close acquaintance. That's an acquaintance that we know well. We may even have emotional ties to. But by Odin's framework of friendship, that's not a friend. Because you spent 20 years and you didn't make time for it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So then you get to 45, which is on me. But if you have another friend and you mistrust him, but want to benefit from him nonetheless, you should speak to him kindly, flatter him, and repay his treachery with your own.
So he's telling you to stroke your enemy's ego?
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. If you, it uses the word friend, but we got to remember it's a poetic style. So here we are talking about acquaintances and people we know. That's specifically what he's talking. He's just reusing the word friend to make it in that poetic style that they use. Because it clearly states, and you mistrust him. This is not somebody you trust. They're not neutral or anything. And they say, but you still want to benefit from them. We all know these people. There's people we know we can't trust them as far as we can throw them. And yet they're in our lives. They're there. We may or may not be able to get rid of them, but there is also a benefit for them in our lives. In this, it tells you to, instead of aggravate, instead of stirring the pot, if you will, to show them kindness, even flatter them, but don't trust them. And when they betray you, you return it in kind. You don't just water off a duck's back, you actually repay the treachery. You let them know they messed up. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I know way too many people like that in my life where you can't trust them, but they may serve a benefit, so you have to at least be polite with them at the time, which is advice I believe I've given Halloween.
Yep.
It's like, tolerate them, be nice, try to keep things smooth, make the best of it as long as you can, and if it hits the fan, nuke them.
Nuke them is my favorite part of that, though. I don't like when things hit the fan, but I do like nuking things.
Yeah. So there we go.
Just carry around a book of matches for every bridge you gotta burn, right?
Oh yeah, matches and gasoline for every bridge you gotta burn, and roast marshmallows and dance by the fire. Never mourn a bridge burn. Okay, 46 Halloween.
This same friend, if you mistrust him and suspect him to be false in his words, you should talk with him, laugh with him, but repay just what he gives you. So false in his words sounds like lying. So if he lies to you, lie to him back?
Not necessarily. You could interpret that. You could, and this one is a tricky one. Jade, thoughts before I tell what the general thought process behind this one is in most consensus?
I mean, this kind of piggybacks of what just was said in the previous stanza, from what it sounds like. I mean, because it's saying, the same friend, if you mistrust and suspect him of false words, so you still just don't trust this dude. Still
Right.
treat him with kindness. I don't know. It just seems like a
there is one
repeat.
factoid. Well, no, there is one slight differential, and it's down here at the bottom. But repay just what he gives you. In other words, do not loan this individual money. Do not go out of your way to help them. Do not give them anything they have not or would not give to you. You always make sure when dealing with them, the scale's level or in your favor. Never do you tip it in their favor to put yourself in debt or in hardship, because you will not get it back.
Got it. Yeah, now that I'm looking at it, the wording is just ever so slightly different.
That one can be easy to miss because it does piggyback, but it's not a full repeat. And it is true, if he gives you treachery, you should give that back. But at the same time, you make sure your resources aren't put in a way that you're left out knowing this guy was false to begin with. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And that's why I also tell people, if you don't know a person or you're still getting to know them, don't loan them anything that you expect to have returned, ever. All right, so.
Is it my turn or your turn?
Yes, it is your turn, 47.
All right. I was what? Oh my God.
Not funny, I don't see blood across there.
Tongue-tied for a second.
It happens.
I was young once. I walked alone, and I became lost on my way. I felt like I was rich when I met when I met another traveler. People's joy is in other people. I felt like I was rich when I met another traveler. Okay.
You want me to read it so you can hear it?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
It just sounds like he's really lonely.
Well, no, I almost feel like he's recounting that he too has made the mistake of maybe being too generous, because he said that he lost his way and he felt like he was rich when he met another traveler. So maybe people's joy
For a
is in
short one,
other
this one
people.
goes deep. It really does.
I mean, I see where Halloween's coming from, where he's saying he's lonely because people's joy is in other people.
Yep.
But I feel like the whole felt like he was rich when he met another traveler kind of falls back to some of the other stanzas, because even though he really doesn't know these people, feeling rich, he might have potentially made some mistakes in being a little loosey-goosey and handing money out to people.
Oh crap. I hit the wrong button on that. I will explain that one as soon as I can close this out. Okay, so we clearly see Odin here talking about his youth and how he walked alone. Those are the first two key points that they focus on. And then, and I became lost on my way. Period. I felt like I was rich. This is the single-minded pursuit of gold, financial wealth, above all else.
Mm-hmm.
At the expense of you don't take time for friends and family and the like. Everything is about wealth. Now, it doesn't specifically state what he meant by lost along the way, but it does stop and say, when I met another traveler, people's joy is in other people. So along the way, other travelers essentially helped him find the way when he was lost. And other travelers brought joy to his life when he had none else.
Okay.
And that's the key thing in your pursuit of life. Yes, self-sufficiency is important, but you also should pay attention to those friends, those family, people you can laugh with genuinely and trust,
Mm-hmm.
because that's wealth beyond gold. Because if you get lost, those people will look for you. You don't have to wait until you wander constantly. They'll have your back when things go wrong. If you're doing something stupid, those are the people who will call you on it. You see how, I mean, it's very short, but it covers
Mm-hmm.
so many aspects of life.
Yeah.
So, and I remember in my life personally where I was very isolated, and yeah, just to have a friend there would have really changed a lot. And then there's times where all I had was that one friend in life. And it's weird because I look back, it don't seem so bad. But if you remove the friend from the picture, suddenly the landscape in which I was dealing with comes into focus. And it's like, yeah, that sucked. But it didn't, because I had that friend. Which maybe that's why I value friendship so much. So there we go. So it's my turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Stanza 48. Kind, brave people live best. They never nurture a grudge. It's unwise to spend your life worrying, dreading your responsibilities.
Today on Halloween isn't wise. I am a worrywart.
Yeah. I mean, by Odin's standards, and well, actually, several books of wisdom actually phrase this in different ways, but yeah. So thoughts, Jade?
I see this on a daily basis with even a blood relative of mine, where she is so stressed out, where she cannot find, and she just feeds into that stress that she can never find happiness
Yeah,
ever.
yeah,
It's like every time I talk to her and I try to, just see how her day's going, so I was like, oh, it was another blah blah blah, and it's just like the moment, like as soon as I see her take a breath, I was like, I already know what she's going to talk about, because all she does is feed into the negativity.
yep. So, I mean, first off, kindness and bravery tend to go hand in hand. It does
Mm-hmm.
actually take a brave person to be kind. It's easier to just be a curmudgeon. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I like that word, curmudgeon.
and you do live your best life when you're happy, because
Yeah.
the emotion you choose to put out does affect your environment and affect your mood. If you mope around the house all day, you're going to just sink deeper and deeper into your mopey state. Where if you say, screw it, enough, pull yourself up, go shower, in my case, shave, even my bald head, and get on doing something, even if it's the dishes or just going for a walk, um, your emotional state turns around so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
You just start to feel better. Then there's the don't nurture a grudge. This is old advice. Nothing is going, if that grudge is there, if something has happened, it is in the past. it's over. If you didn't deal with it then, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not an active, functional thing, move on. Get over yourself. Because the only person you're hurting is yourself. That's why it is unwise. And then it mentions that it's unwise to spend your life worrying. Simple fact of the matter. Something you're sitting there worrying about tomorrow, worrying about a week from now. What do you accomplish? Truth be told, nothing. It will cost you health. It will cost you sleep. It will extend your stress. It will actually affect your ability to do anything that resembles self-care. All it does is take away from you and gives you nothing to worry.
This is like a weird thing, but to quote Newt Scamander from Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts, or not Harry Potter, wow, Fantastic Beasts, which is the Harry Potter franchise. If you worry about it, you suffer twice.
It's
So,
true.
like, if you worry about injury, you not only suffer the injury, if you do get injured, you suffered worrying about the injury before even getting injured, if you do get injured.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a true statement. Like I said, this is rephrased in so many different things. Um, and it finishes by dreading your responsibilities. Spending your life worrying, dreading your responsibilities. Okay, responsibilities are there. We have to do them. We have to do the dishes. We have to go to work. Worrying about going to work, worrying about doing the dishes, worrying about things that are your responsibility is stupid because it's there. You have to do it. It's like eating. I have to eat. So instead of wasting time worrying about it, just do it. It's not fun, true, but if you do it instead of worrying about it, you only suffer once. And I lived this one. I have worked many a job where I hated my boss. I despised going in. In fact, every day it was just one argument after another. But I didn't worry about the arguments. They were going to be there one way or the other. When I went home and I was not at work, period. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
If you catch yourself worrying, remind yourself how silly you're being, basically. And there's a difference in reminding yourself to do something and accomplishing or making a plan and a schedule to do and sitting there worrying about it while doing nothing. There is a difference there. Do we understand that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 41. I'm glad Halloween gets to read this one.
49.
Or 49.
I gave my clothes to 2 scarecrows once when I walked in a field. They thought they were human as soon as they had clothes on. A naked man feels ashamed. So, what? I mean, I like that he had scarecrows and he just like, naked scarecrow. Let me just dress him real quick. But what?
I love this one. It is fun, but it actually has wonderful meaning. Wonderful meaning.
I mean, the naked man feels ashamed because he has nothing to cover him. He, like, so that could be like, no boundaries leaves you naked. And, like, being naked leaves you vulnerable, and you could be ashamed of being vulnerable. So that part makes sense. I don't get the dressing the scarecrows.
I'm honestly lost on this one.
Okay, interestingly enough, what Halloween said is not a bad interpretation of you on this because it does leave you vulnerable. But this is talking about the simplistic things in life making one feel human. Actually having the ability to take a little pride in oneself, to feel that you have something. This one can apply to people who are without jobs or homeless or anything. They will take, I mean, okay, me for example, I'm real picky about the clothes I wear. I'm not a complicated person. I don't buy expensive stuff, but there's a lot of patterns and colors I'll avoid like the plague because I have the ability to do so. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But then there's people who you give them a brand new shirt of any kind, they will treasure it. Because to have a nice set of clothes on can fill a person with a lot of dignity. And it is those little things that so many people take for granted that are really the simple things in life that can make us feel human. Remember what I said about shaving?
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, the ability to sit down with shaving cream, shaving soap, a nice razor, and actually have a good shave, that's a luxury. There's a lot of things we as humans today view as entitlements that we should not. And it's pure egotistical mindset that we do so. I'm not entitled to a nice razor. I'm not entitled to shaving cream. If we broke it down to the simplest animalistic side of survival, I'm going to have to either pull the hair out or find me a sharp rock to scrape it off dry shave.
Ooh.
Now, I have been in situations where I've dry shaved with a knife, even. Don't recommend it, by the way. Don't do it. I know some razor burn. And I'm not saying I want us to go back to that, but one of the things that I say that we should understand that these are luxuries, not entitlements, is first off, when we view these as entitlements, it boosts our ego and separates us from humanity. And what's worse, it has us constantly looking down on those less fortunate. Now, I will say our society has grown to a point where most people can get shaving cream or something similar, and it almost does feel like an entitlement. And that's a good thing, but we should never view it as an entitlement because we should not look down on those who are less fortunate. So, next time you're sitting in a bubbly tub or shaving, think about those who can't. Make sense?
Yep.
It's another reason we decided to make Wounded Warriors our charity because they gave everything, and many of them end up in places where they can't. All right. But as serious as that one gets, I do like that they wrote it in a fun way. Because seriously, scarecrows. All right. Jade?
Yep. Number 50.
Yes.
A fir tree decays standing over a farm, no longer protected by bark and needles. A person is the same way if nobody loves him. How will he live much longer?
Thoughts?
So, I mean, people in general, we thrive off of relationships and being surrounded by others. And so if a person is isolated and alone, it it really, affects them, emotionally, mentally, physically. Just like a tree that doesn't have attention to it, like what he's mentioning, doesn't have the attention and the love and care. So therefore the needles start falling off, the bark is not protecting it anymore. And a lot of people aren't able to survive without having that type of person to person connection.
Mm-hmm. Halloween?
Honestly, I thought of penguins because, like, if you think of a group of penguins in, like, Antarctica in the winter, if you put a single penguin in the winter of Antarctica, they're going to freeze to death. But a group of penguins will rotate in and out and share their body heat across the group of them. Forming a community helps all of them survive. But if you put a lone penguin out there, he's fucking dead. Also, sorry for language. But, like, So if you do the same thing to humans, like, if you think about, like, you can be as self-sufficient as you want, but can you make your own clothes, make your own food, grow your own food, make your own weapons, do this, do that, do all of it for yourself at all times forever? Probably not. Having other
And
people around kind of shares the body heat.
right. And see, that's part of it because I think the analogy of the fir tree here actually touches on that. Because the fir tree lost its bark. View that as your shelter. It lost, like the walls. It lost its needles. That's the overhead cover. And yeah, when we're talking about people, that's the community. So a person can have a skill set of self-sufficiency. And if enough things go wrong, the entire supply chain that would require you to be self-sufficient falls apart. In fact, a hermit in the woods who, let's say, they can make their own clothes, they can make their own food, they can grow their own food, they have their cattle, they have their sheep, they got everything they need out there. And their entire existence is getting up, working their farm, making their stuff, and surviving. Okay? And let's even say they enjoy being alone. Okay, what happens when they break their foot?
And
The entire
nobody.
system requires on their ability to do the work, which means if they mechanically, something happens just once, the entire line and process falls apart. So you need those people. You need your penguins
Thank
to
you.
share the load.
I love the penguin analogy. I was a little confused for a second, but once when you
I was
mentioned
too.
the,
Once you hit it, I was like, that's perfect.
and then
It
it
really
instantly made
is.
me think of the Happy Feet movie.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I studied some zoology in college, is where I got it from, but Happy Feet works too. I think they touch on that in that movie. I watched that like
Hmm.
once in elementary school. I think that's what happened. That's the
Yeah.
one where like the seal eats a baby penguin, right?
I can't remember.
No.
No, that's the dancing
They
penguins
were
one.
the dad penguin was doing the whole circle thing with all the other dads while the moms are out hunting. The one dad got all like super happy singing and he lost control of his egg and it went out into the cold
Aw.
away from
Yeah.
the shared body heat, and so the penguin had some developmental issues
Issue.
once when it was hatched.
All right. Um, me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So stanza 51. The friendship among false friends burns warmly for 5 days, but then it's extinguished by the sixth day, and the friendship is over.
Hmm. I have seen that happen far too many times.
This is a lesson I've tried to get my daughters to understand.
Yeah. I've come across too many friendships to where thought it was real friendship, but it really wasn't. It was one of those lopsided friendships, like what you were talking about.
Fair?
You give more than what they're giving you, or not what they're giving you, but they're not giving in return like what you're giving to them, in a sense.
Yeah,
And eventually, that friendship just goes away.
exactly. Exactly. And in all honesty, in most cases, literally within a week or two, those people disappear quickly.
Hmm.
But I have seen these smoldering false friendships burn for even a year or two and then just poof, gone.
I've had a false friendship last for close to 3 years.
Yeah. So keep an eye on the person, keep an eye on their actions, look at all the stanzas before talking about how friendship should work. And if they up and disappear on you without justifiable cause, take heart in knowing you did not lose a friend.
Hmm.
It's harsh, but there you go.
Yeah.
All right, Squirrel, you're up. Stanza 52.
You should not give only big gifts. Often a little thing will win you favor. I have won friends with just half a loaf of bread and a bowl of soup. So the half loaf of bread and bowl of soup would be like sharing a meal. So giving them a meal gives the friendship, which you can talk and make friends over food. Um, not gift the gifts. The rest of that I'm still thinking on.
I mean, the way I see it is, when you're with your friends, it doesn't always require these big lavish gifts and things and get-togethers to be friends. You could have small little meetups, small little things, like even if it's like, for instance, let's say I make a ginormous pot of soup or something, and one of my best friends absolutely loves soup, and so whenever I make it, I'm like, hey, come and have a container of soup, and he'll come over, take some soup, and then in turn he gives me a small little ink drawing that he does. It's like small things, like
Right,
it
right.
doesn't have
And
to be these big lavish things.
I think originally this is talking about don't wait for the big moments. Like, don't just celebrate and spend time on holidays, the big moments.
Hmm.
Um, Remember the little things. I think originally that's what that was. However, in modern times, I also see a new meaning for me in this stanza because a lot of people are all about the big gifts and the big gift cred that they can hold over your head later.
Hmm.
It wasn't a gift, it was essentially a down payment on a you owe me.
Hmm.
Which sucks.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I don't like the whole big gift thing because you're having to outdo yourself over and over and over again
No,
on
see,
these.
I've done big gifts, but the reason I do it is I will see something that makes me think of the person. There's an occasion coming up. It makes sense. I get it. Fine.
Hmm.
But I'm going to go back to a bowl of soup after that. I mean, I adore cooking
Hmm.
for my friends. I really do.
Hmm.
And it's the little things like, maybe a shirt or even a plushie are kind of nice, or just a bottle of whiskey, something
Hmm.
simple and easy to get. And I know, guys, there's whiskeys out there that aren't simple, but I mean it. I
Hmm.
have simply bought a bottle of $20 Johnny Walker for a buddy of mine who drinks $300 scotch, and him and I had the absolute best night in the world sharing that Johnny Walker, and neither of us thought about the freaking price tag.
Hmm.
So it is the simple things.
I mean, my favorite gift from you and Mom from Christmas was a pack of socks you guys got me that had little kitty ears on them, and then they had like the stripes and different patterns or whatever. And I was like,
Yep.
I wear those all the time. Like the
See?
other gifts were nice and all, but like the socks won. Like the socks were my favorite, and like statistically, are like the most expensive gift? No, but like
No.
I love cats and I love socks, and you found cat socks in different colors, and I wear the pink ones all the time. Now they aren't really as pink anymore, but when they were, I wore them all the time.
So remember, it's not the big show of friendship that matters in the long run. It's those little things. A cup of coffee together, going out to grab a bite, just the small chat at midnight or early morning, whatever. Or
Hmm.
some cases, hey, you want to talk for 30 minutes? Yeah. 24 hours later. Oh, crap, we're still on the phone?
Hmm.
Us.
It happens. So let's see. And that was, who read that one?
You did, so I should read the
Okay.
next one. Or yeah, yeah. Um, where the beaches are small, it's a small sea that washes them. And so it is with little minds. Not everyone is equally wise, but the average is moderately wise. I got nothing.
You there, Jade?
I'm pondering.
This one's a tricky one. I'll give you that one.
I mean, I get the last part, which is not everybody is equally wise, but the average is moderately wise. Um, Where the beaches are small, small
Well, the beaches here you can be viewed as the world in which you're exposed. So, from my childhood, um, there was several small towns that some people never ever even left to go shopping in. There's only so much wisdom that can be gained within that very tiny border. So you would have to expand your horizons to gain more.
Okay.
So the beaches is almost talking about small minds in a small pool that never seek to broaden, change, or increase their thought.
Okay, because like when it was talking about this, for some reason I was thinking about like a small hot tub that people were all trying to squeeze into.
Because I'm like, the beaches are small because there's like, that could be small minds and a small sea washes them. So like small minds, small thoughts, like gossip.
Yeah. Essentially a small, it would be a small sea brushing up against it continually, like that small town. The only thing you know is that town. You could, within the town, you may appear very wise. Outside the town, you're going to look like an idiot. If you've never been exposed to anything out of that. Now, of course, we have TV and books and everything that can expose more people today. But if you think about the small town concept at this period, there was no other exposure. And it does mention that not everyone is equally wise. And that is true. Not everyone is going to be equally wise because everyone has different experiences. And as we've discussed, wisdom is a reflection of our experiences. But the average person is moderately wise because the average person ideally has gotten out there and done things and hasn't limited themselves. They've been able to live an average life, even if they haven't been able to live a life where they done all the traveling and learning that Odin may have done. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So, Jade, you're up.
All right.
Stanza 54.
Yep. You should be only a little wise, never too wise. The happiest people throughout their lives are moderately wise.
This stanza tends to surprise a lot of people to be said by Odin.
Yeah, because in the whole beginning part when we first started reading the Havamal, he was talking about being wise and talking to people to gain their knowledge and stuff, and now he's saying it's
ignorance is bliss.
Yeah. Here's the thing. The more you know about the world and its workings, the more you know, the more you actually get to live with. We don't get into politics here on this channel, but let's be honest. There's a difference between keeping up with the affairs in the world, whether it's important or not. That's a debate. And those people who just don't know, they have no idea what's going on. And usually the people following the events of the world and politics and all that, they've got a bit more stress. And there is a point in your wisdom, which Odin's advising you on, that as you are gaining wisdom to live a good life, be sure you gain wisdom to live a good life, because there is a point where you may cross over into too much. And there is a reason Odin has occasionally been referred to as the god of depression. Because if you actually look at Odin and you read the Eddas, there's a lot of times when he's accused of knowing too much and how those burdens weigh upon him. Because once you know it, you know it. That's it. Some things are better left unknown. And that's kind of the warning here. Be careful what it is. Make sure you want the answers before you go seeking. Does that make sense?
Now it does.
All right. Next one. Stanza 55. You should be only a little wise, never too wise. A wise man's heart is seldom glad if he's truly wise.
Isn't that just the same thing?
Kind of.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that with wisdom comes the burdens of that wisdom. Wisdom has a burden to it. And it is a reminder of that burden. Is wisdom a valuable tool? Yes. Odin's even mentioned it's probably one of the most valuable things you can take with you. But there is a burden that comes with the wisdom. So be careful where you overextend. Squirrel, you're next.
All right, and just so you're aware, time check. But I will read this one. You should only be a little wise, never too wise. It's best not to know your fate beforehand. You'll live happier if you don't. This kind of reminds me of like Back to the Future, where like he meets Doc in the past, and then he's like, Doc, you're alive! And then Doc like doesn't want to know when he dies, because like A, it messes up like the space-time continuum, but B, like then he might try to change the future, he might subvert things, he might cause more problems long run, knowing like what is to come and suffering before that point.
Yeah, I mean, you got to figure Odin knew his fate. He knew he would die at Ragnarok. And that's one of the reasons he does kind of get that, again, that god of depression, that solemnness about him at times. Though, if you read the edits, it doesn't look like he's trying to prevent it, though, depending on how you read it, he could be trying to prevent it. But it seems a little more likely that he's actually trying to continue the cycles. But that is a knowledge that it would suck. And knowing how something ends takes away the joy and the excitement of it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have this saying today, spoiler alert, right?
Yeah.
For some, people don't want to know how the movie ends. I'll be honest, for me, I don't care how it ends. I want to know how I get there. The ending don't matter as much as the journey. So telling me the centerpiece is going to upset me more than the end. Because in most cases, if you've seen enough movies and stories, you can guess the end. That's easy. How do we get there? What's the story that develops it? Unfortunately, people aren't writing good stories anymore, which is why I don't watch a lot of movies anymore.
Yeah.
I
mean, sorry.
No, that's fine. I was just going to say, but that is there, it's talking about you don't necessarily want to know the end before you take the journey.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of one of the things I've always kind of just held on to, which is, there's all these people who worry about, how they're going to die and stuff like that, like what's going to happen to me when I get older. But if somebody came to me and gave me a crystal ball and said, if you look into this, you'll know exactly how you're going to die, I would never do it. Because after that point, I would worry about that one moment the rest of my life.
And then life loses all meaning.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to that worrying concept.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's try to get through 58, which is two more.
Okay. I was going to say 60 takes us to the end of the page.
Well, let's do 60. Sounds like a plan.
Sure.
All right.
So that's me.
Yep.
Yep.
A torch is lit by another and burns till it burned out. A fire is kindled by another fire. A man becomes wise by speaking with other men, but foolish by keeping to himself. It sounds like you're kind of just like, so he's becoming wise by speaking with other men. It's kind of like he's passing the torch, passing his knowledge from one person to the next, and that person will then in turn keep that knowledge and then in turn pass it to the next person that he comes across. And it's just like a continual pattern of passing the torch.
Well, yeah, and in this case, it's not just passing the torch, because this man will gain wisdom from this man.
Mm-hmm.
This man will gain wisdom from this man.
Mm-hmm.
So interacting with people, discussing things, and learning what's going on in their life and their viewpoints and hearing them out brings wisdom and understanding. Unlike most today who listen only to retaliate or argue. They really sitting down to talk and hear a person without retaliate, just to truly hear them, can bring a lot of wisdom. But it takes an open mind to openly listen to do that also. Because that's one of the things that's talking about kindling another fire.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you got to be open to that effect. Because if you build a fire next to a brick wall, aka the closed off person, the fire's still going to go out.
Yeah.
So, all right. Mine? Or Halloween, did you have thoughts on that one?
Not really.
All right. So, 58. Rise early if you want to take another man's property or his life. A sleeping wolf seldom wins a sheep, or a sleeping warrior a victory.
Early bird takes the worm.
Mm-hmm.
This one is essentially, it is the early bird gets a worm, but it's also talking about get up and get it done. Don't procrastinate. Don't put it off. If you want something, go for it. Don't complain. Don't worry. Don't put it off. Do it. If you're not going to do it, don't complain when it doesn't happen. It does talk about, we're talking time of day based on just generally how things worked back then, but do it when it's time to do it. Don't put it off. A lot of people need to learn this one throughout the world, in my mind. All right, Halloween, you got the next one?
Rise early if you have no one to work for you, and get straight to work. You'll lose more than time if you sleep when it dawns. For the early riser, wealth is half won. That's like farm work, right? Because that starts like right on dawn when the rooster starts.
Technically, farm work starts before the rooster makes noise. Technically.
In case you can't tell, I was not raised in a barn. I'm a city girl.
I mean, the way I see this is that, the longer you procrastinate, like the longer you sleep in, the less productive you're going to be.
Yeah.
And because it says if you have no one to work for you, get straight to work. You're not relying on anybody. You're trying to be self-sufficient. And if you're trying to be self-sufficient, the worst thing you could do for yourself is by putting it off and procrastinating, because then you're not going to get the stuff you need done.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we all have the exact same amount of time. How we use it is up to us and only us.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if you just get up and get what you need to get done, then it's done. It's out of the way. You can spend the rest of the day doing other things. But most people try to put the fun stuff in front and then run out of time for the important things.
Mm-hmm.
All right. 60. Okay.
That'd be me. You should know how to dry logs for firewood and bark for roofing. And also this, how to measure time and the seasons.
Let's see if you guys can figure this one out.
So
the hint, consider the time period.
I mean, these would be practical for the time period because you had to rely on fire for warmth. They didn't have air conditioning. I guess they repaired their own roofs, maybe?
Well, here's the thing, because like with drying logs for firewood, it needs to be done a specific way, otherwise the wood won't burn correctly, but it also needs to be done before the wet season comes, because otherwise the logs are not going to be useful. So you need to learn how to prep and plan based on the tools you have and the season, in a sense.
Yeah, there's actually a lot in this little stanza. Because you are right, firewood is something you do now to plan for later. So that skill set there is putting that into context, but also the other stuff, yes, they did repair their own roofs. That was there were no roofers. You had a hole in your roof, you fixed it yourself. And this stanza is literally talking about the practical skills of life and survival. The things you should know how to do as an adult. And I mean, it's a short stanza, but it goes into all that. And it even mentions the seasons and time, which you do have to plan ahead for the seasons. Because, I mean, most places have some form of growing season. And in some places, you have full-on winter. So if you have not planned for winter when nothing grows, and you think you're going to go out in your yard and pick some carrots or something, or cabbages, probably not going to happen.
Well, because like back then, they didn't have the luxury of refrigerators and freezers and whatnot, so they had to do planning months before the winter season by curing meat.
Yep.
And preserving whatever foods they can to sustain them for the entire winter.
And our skill sets have changed a little in modern times. I mean, we need to know how to manage our resources and our budget. We need to understand our pantry. We need to understand freezer space and refrigerators. We need to understand the groceries we purchase. Because I can't count the number of people I know who go out and buy fresh fruits and vegetables and throw more than half of it away. Because they really don't understand how to manage their resources. So not only are they wasting money, they're wasting produce as well. Understanding those basic concepts. If you have a yard, do you have the skill set to maintain what you have? If you own a car, do you know how to check tire pressure? Do you know how to check the depth on a tire? Do you know how to check the fluids? Do you know how to check the battery? Do you know how to maintain the basics of the lifestyle you choose to live? And if you take on something, like if you buy a house with yard and landscaping, it's your responsibility to figure out how to handle it. And it is your responsibility to maintain it at that point. Now, there's multiple solutions to some of these problems, but you still have to have the answer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. And that is 60, which means we will be starting the next roundtable on 61. You okay there, Halloween? You seem a little distracted.
My contacts are bothering me, so I'm like, eh.
Okay. Anything we need to mention going on before we close? I don't think so. Now we got the live streams on Sundays, where we are now doing super chats of $5 or more will be included in spell workings. We also have the spell working for the channel memberships, and the monthly perks that all goes with all that. Anyways, we are working to help support wounded warriors now.
I got a cool new wand.
You got a new wand? Woo!
Yeah. I mean, I had my original wand, so now I have two.
Now you have two.
And a staff that lives in my closet.
And a staff that lives in your closet.
Also, I will be on a live stream this month. we haven't quite decided the date, but I will be on one.
Sounds good. We were discussing, I'm thinking we'll try for the 11th if you're good. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Because then I could use
I'll be
the
home
day
anyway.
off. There you go. All right, so we will attempt that one. Don't hold us to it if you hear us say the 11th, but we will try it the 11th. And Jade just finished her crystal magic workshop. For those who missed it, we are hoping to have it posted within the next few months again, maybe, as well as potentially another workshop to be announced.
Yes, we have. I'm already working on building the outline for the next workshop. Might take 2 or 3 months for me to have that ready to launch because it's a lot of information that I'm having to compact down into an hour workshop. I mean, Drake even saw the notes that I had for the crystals workshop, and I had to tailor that thing down like crazy.
Yeah. And we're all getting into the busy season. I mean, summer's over, but for magical practitioners, September kind of kicks off the crazy season. So
yeah, it does. I'm doing September on TikTok if y'all want to follow me at 11 Halloween 22.
That's fine. Yeah. If you want to say that again clearer, so they can if they want, because you can plug yourself here.
11 Halloween 22. So 11, the word Halloween, and then 22. That is my Instagram and my TikTok.
There you go. Do follow her. She occasionally, quite often, actually posts some funny and goofy stuff.
It's mostly D&D though, so if you're into D&D.
Yeah, it is mostly D&D. And remain polite. Don't be weird.
Yeah.
All right, ladies, I will go ahead and shut this off. Everyone, thank you for joining us for another roundtable. And we'll see you at the next one. Take care. Good night.
Night.
Bye.